We are doing a sermon series this summer on the book of Proverbs, which is a book of wisdom. It's a book about living skillfully. How do we become people who live skillfully in the everyday things of life? Not just, are nice and know how to sit in church and we make a little time for them once a week or, a couple times a month, but how do we become people who live well, who live how we're supposed to? And we've covered a lot of different topics, and today what we're going to focus in on is relationships. And most of the book of Proverbs could be used to help us live better relationships, have better relationships. And so I've been looking through the whole book, trying to pull out what are different things from Proverbs and then categorize them. And I think I got it down to 70 passages, not verses, passages out of Proverbs, and a lot of pages. And then I got it down to 5 pages, and then I cut that in half. And then even today, I'm still whittling away so that I don't overwhelm us, because there's so many good things, but we'll take nothing away from it if I give too much. So I've really tried to narrow it down. Here's the verse. If we're going to stick with one verse out of them all, here's the emphasis I want to have, and it's from Proverbs 20, verse 6. Many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find? Many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find? Love is a word that's used all the time, all over the place, in our songs, in our movies, in our everyday relating. We talk about love on a whole range of things. We talk about how we love food. We talk about how we love this experience we have. We talk about how we love someone, people that are close to. We love them, and we genuinely have feelings of like, I really like them. I'm really for them. They're so special to me. There's all of that kind of love, and we say it, and we have good intentions many of the times. But a faithful person who can find? Who is there for you when you need it? Who do you rely on? Who do you know you can rely on? A faithful person who can find. You can say love. It's easy to say love. It's easy to use the word love. But a faithful person who is there when we need it, when it's hard, when we've messed up. Who is there? And now, for a big part of today's sermon, are you a faithful person? Are you there for people when they need it? Are you the kind of person who is there even when someone has messed up multiple times, gives another chance? Are you that kind of person? How do we become those kind of people? That's what we're going to look at today in relationships. So to start, the first thing I want to just talk about is that Proverbs says a lot that relationships, especially our close relationships, they can be sources of great joy. They can be one of the things that's the best part of our life, or they can be things that cause us incredible pain. The closer we are to someone, the more they have power to hurt us. That's the reality. If I don't know someone very well and I hear, they said they think you're a jerk. Okay. I don't really know them, or I hardly know them. If my wife goes around telling everybody I'm a jerk, I feel that a little more. So, what we want to here, let me give some examples of what Proverbs says first. I've got most of my passages front-loaded so that we don't get slowed down later. The father of a righteous child has great joy. A man who fathers a wise son rejoices in that child. May your father and mother rejoice. May she who gave you birth be joyful. This is an example of the kinds of things that's said over and over again. A child that's wise, a child that is on the right path, a child that gives great joy, a child that stays in relationship with their parents. That's a source of great joy. And grandchildren, even better. Next passage would say, children's children are a crown to the aged, and parents are the pride of their children. So when you've got a little kid, they think if their parent is present, if their parent is for them, and they know that, they think their parent is the best. They think they beam with pride over their parent. When they're teenagers, they think differently. But when they're little, like no one is better than my mom or my dad. When the relationship is good, that's the most important people in our lives. Next passage, please. Sorry, I'm not, yep. A wife of noble character who can find, she is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. There are multiple passages in Proverbs that talk about the value of finding a good wife, how finding a good wife is better than so many other things, how finding a good wife is from the Lord. Next passage. There are also a lot of passages like this. To have a fool for a child brings grief. Oh, that's next. Can you get the next one? I may have given you the wrong one. Doesn't matter. I have all these kind of passages right here memorized. A quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of a leaky roof in a rainstorm. Let me tell you, Proverbs, you just start reading along, and then there's just something about this quarrelsome wife. And better to live in a corner of a roof than to live with a nagging wife. Better to live in a desert than living with a quarrelsome and nagging wife. And it even has some of these verbatim multiple times throughout. Clearly, Proverbs is written by a man, because there is nothing about the nagging husband. There's nothing about that. But there is something too. You could put this either way. You could take this outside of spouse relationships. Someone you have to be around a lot if they nag a lot, if they quarrel a lot. It's not good to be around. And in your life, if you have to be around that kind of person a lot, it is really demoralizing. The thing that we're talking about again, though, is, are we that kind of person? Are we the quarrelsome one? Are we the one who nags? Now, if Proverbs was written by a woman, it might have something like, even words spoken with uncertainty can be like a bridge, but silence makes the chasm bigger. Even words spoken like when we don't know what to say can build a bridge, but silence can make the chasm bigger. I made that up by myself, by the way. And why would I make something like, those are women? Now, why would I come up with that? Because when I am with my wife and I don't know what to say, I think it's easier just to go over here. And hopefully, time apart will bring us back together. Because I think what I'm going to say is going to make it worse. Because I want to fix it, but I don't feel like there's a solution, or I've already thrown out my 3 solutions. But occasionally, I push through, and we talk, and I don't know where we're going with the conversation. It feels emotional. I feel not very secure right now. And we get done, and I don't feel like anything has changed. But we've become more connected. So that is something with can you give me the next slide? I just want to, okay, so that is something with spouses. These are the things, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what are the things that bring us together that are for many relationships, but particularly we can apply to marriage a little bit later. And I'm going to talk about parenting a little bit later, but I want to get to friendship in a moment. By the way, with marriage, I think I've told this story a few times. I'm going back to go through and get what I need from seminary to be ordained instead of just commissioned as a pastor. And I'm in Pasadena, California. I spend a few months there, and I make friends with a bunch of 20-somethings, particularly guys. And we're in Koreatown eating Korean barbecue. And these guys all have lists of what their future spouse is going to be like. Here are the qualities they're looking for the future spouse. They all have their lists. And after hearing things about their lists, I say to them, so do you have a list of what kind of husband you want to be? Now, if we all have lists about what we want other people to be like, the standards, and we have high standards, high things of what we want other people to be like, but we don't make lists for us trying to become that kind of person. How do you think relationships work? And whether or not we have lists or not, don't you think most of us are like that? Don't you think most of us create this is my expectations of what I would expect from you, but I'm not working hard to be that kind of person. I haven't put as much intentionality into the kind of person I want to become and what it takes to become. Many people claim unfailing love, but a faithful person, someone who over time becomes the kind of person that other people like to be around, that other people can count on, it is hard to find. Now, back to friendship. It's not just families. It's not just families. Some of us have good families, some of us have bad families. Some of us are single, some of us are on our own, some of us are near family, some of us are not. But who are the close people in our life? So now I'll take that next verse. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother, closer than a sister. Do you have any friend like that? The studies are showing that increasingly we don't. Increasingly, especially men, don't have someone they feel like they could just call up in the middle of the night and talk to. They can't come up with one person. Many of us cannot come up with one person. Do you have a friend like that? Are you a friend like that? Next passage, please. Okay, parents should discipline their children. This I'm just inserting here because if we're going to talk about relationships and we're talking about family relationships and we're talking about Proverbs, it just says things over and over again about discipline. Let's go to the next verse. Discipline your children, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to their death. I took the one on discipline that doesn't have the rod in it. So many, spare the rod, spoil the child. That is from Proverbs. There is a lot about sparing the rod, and that feels like, my dad did not spare the yardstick, okay, for us. But we have to be very careful because certainly there is nothing that we should be promoting abusiveness. And, counselors can correct me if I'm wrong, but, if you start, when you're under 4 or something like that, when you're really young, certainly in 2 or 1, you personalize everything and you're not connecting it to the action. Okay, something's bad about me, but you're not developmentally there yet. So we have to be careful about physical forms. Although I'll say, when my kids want to stick their fingers in outlets, I've done that. Because I want them to know, don't ever get there. Why? Because I love them. I don't want them sticking their fingers in outlets or sticking their fingers in something hot. So in that sense, there's something extreme. Now, I feel bad. I'm a little nervous that somebody's going to report me for abuse right now in this congregation. But there's a thing about there may be points. We may disagree on that. But here's where I think we could come to. We may have swung culturally from a overly harsh my dad spanked my classmates. He was a principal. You could do that back in the day. I remember my classmates coming in after they got a spanking. I'm just it's not good. So so I'm glad that we aren't in that place anymore. But discipline our children is important. So my brother and I were talking, he's a pastor in Ottumwa. Increasingly, we find that parents have things like, there's no bedtime for their kids. 2nd, 3rd grade, no bedtime. There's kids can be self-directed. Kids need sleep. Kids shouldn't play video games past midnight. Kids need direction. And they need consequences. And they need boundaries. It is not loving to say, you can do whatever you want. If someone's hungry, I give them food. The most loving thing I can do for them is give them food. When someone has a different need, the most loving thing I can do is give that to them. But when someone is spoiled and gets their way all the time and doesn't know how to handle not getting their way, the most loving thing I can do for them in their development is to show them how to not get their way, and it's okay. I was talking to a law enforcement person recently, and he was telling me a story about a woman who was a drug addict. And in the conversation with her, he said, at least you know what this does, because her life had become so awful in so many ways. And so you would know not to guide your children like that. And her response to him was, oh no, if my child wanted drugs, I would give it to him right away, because I know how bad it is to really want drugs. See, that's what no discipline does. No discipline says, we'll give you even stuff that's really bad for you, rather than in the moment not make you feel bad. So discipline, a couple more on discipline, and then we'll move back to relationships. Start off children on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. We're trying to teach our kids as we go. And starting young is the place to do it. Now, let me go the opposite extreme. Our son is going to college soon. Now, if we monitor everything he does as a junior in high school and a senior in high school, you have to do this, you can't do this, this is how much time you get on your phone, and we do that all the way till he graduates, and then he leaves, we have not prepared him to be able to make the decisions himself. So you see the ditches we can run into as parents. You can see why almost all of us feel like we're bad parents. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Because on the one hand, kids need discipline. They need no is an answer. They need to learn that no is an answer. But on the other hand, they need to, as they get older, be empowered. The goal, a wise man told me this when my oldest kids were little. He said, the goal is that when they're 18, they know how to make wise decisions on their own and live on their own. And so right now you have to start, and then you have to keep adjusting so that you can talk about why are you making this decision. Not just you're going to do everything because I say so. Let's move on. I don't know what's next, though. Oh, yeah, this is important. This is my biggest encouragement as a parent. The righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are their children after them. Now, one of the things I would say is the best thing you can do for your child is to go all the way in for Jesus and to live your life for Jesus as the best you can, and to focus on your own relationship with God. Lots of mistakes have been made in the past, lots of regrets we have, sure, fine. But moving forward, are you going all the way in for Jesus? Because we can try to say, well, we don't want you to do these bad things, and we're so worried about you, and don't do this, and try to do all of this. But then we live differently. Don't be on your phone so much. The biggest thing we can do is our own example. That is what they pick up. Full of love, full of goodness, full of discipline. Well, I'm not full of those things. But I am moving towards that, and I have apologized, I'm pretty sure, to all of my kids at some point. I have just acknowledged I made a mistake. I was wrong there. I should not have yelled at you that moment. Now we're going to go and fast forward. How do you build good relationships? Let me just I wrote a couple things down. Let me just share what those are. Here's one. The last 2 Sundays, some of you were here, some of you weren't. 2 Sundays ago, we talked about drinking alcohol. I haven't done a sermon on that topic ever, but we did one there because it's in Proverbs. And one of the things was, don't get drunk. Don't let your desires rule over you where you don't have control over them. And that would be true. Don't take drugs. Our addictions can end up sabotaging our families. So one of the things we would need to do is, if we are when we're taking steps towards, we need to make sure we don't move into addictive behavior, whatever those addictions are. If we are addicted to whatever we're addicted to, and some of the things may look good or not look bad, but if it's consuming us, if we can't say no to it, then usually we'll end up sacrificing things in our family. We'll sacrifice our family for the addiction. So trying to get out of addiction and not being proud about having an addiction, but just whatever help we need to get rid of addiction, that is going to help our relationships. Addictive behavior, I think most of us can observe that, but it's sneaky in our own selves. We can observe it in other people, but it's sneaky in our own selves. Okay, and then last week we said, work hard, don't be lazy. Work hard, don't be lazy. That helps your relationships. If you work hard, if you serve, if you play your part or even go above and beyond your part, that people appreciate that you live with. If you don't, people resent that, and it affects the relationship. All right, let me talk about a couple of books. Now, these books are about marriage, but I think they're true about relationships. Jesus quoted the Old Testament to say, love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you want them to do to you. But here's the thing about that's sneaky, is that what I really want isn't necessarily what Camille really wants. So if Camille is needing something from me, or it's not in great space, I just have like this default setting. I'm going to take out the garbage. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to do all of these kinds of things. Why? When I'm stressed, that's what I want. There's a book called The 5 Love Languages. It talks about physical touch, just affection. It talks about acts of service. It talks about receiving gifts, quality time, and words of affirmation. And the premise of this book is we tend to love people, especially our spouse, if we're married, we tend to love them in the way that we want love. Meanwhile, missing how they want love. So quality time, undivided attention, if that's what Camille's looking for me, and instead of undivided attention, and this has been like my pattern, just is my pattern, I just quick get busy because acts of service is one of mine. That's what fills my tank up. And so I will do that, but I'm not filling her tank. So it's not just do unto others as you want done to you, it's discover in others what they would want and do that. And that's a huge thing because it's so frustrating to feel like you're doing something for your spouse, for your kids, for someone that you're close to. You feel like I'm doing this for you, and it's not appreciated. Now, the books that I most recommend for marriage, they're not coming from a Christian perspective, but just I think they're good relationship tools, are from Willard Harley, and they're His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. His Needs, Her Needs has a similar thing. It's got 5 needs that are stereotypically guys. Sometimes they meet girls' needs, and then 5 that are stereotypically for women. And it's the same kind of concept. Learn the ways that most fill up the other person and do those. But then he talks about that's like making little deposits. When you do the little things over time, it's little deposits, you build up a bank account because you're doing those little things. Then he's got a book called Love Busters, and Love Busters are angry outbursts, disrespectful judgments, annoying behavior, selfish demands, and dishonesty. And he's saying, you need to know what those are because they're like huge withdrawals. So you could do all kinds of good things for someone, and then you say, but you have one annoying behavior. It's not annoying to everybody, but it's annoying to the person you live with. And all that work you did to try to build up to benefit just sinks out because that. So if you learn what that is and don't do it, it's worth it. All right. Moving forward. Let me go back to Proverbs. This is an opportunity to share what I think are some things that are wisdom in our relationships. But here's the next, what we say and how we say it is a major relationship impactor. In the moment, saying something or the way we say something isn't that big of a deal. Like, okay, I said that wrong. That's not the biggest deal in the world. However, all of that over time is going to give the quality of your relationships. What we say and how we say, and Proverbs is absolutely filled with this. Next week, we're actually going to get into this topic more specifically, but just a few things. So Proverbs says, words of a reckless person, they're like swords that dagger, like that. They cause hurt. But a wise person, their words brings healing. It talks about anxiety weighs a heart down, but a kind word lifts it up. Now again, these things seem so like, yeah, a kind word will make you feel better. People who are saying what's wrong with this and how stressed they are, it makes the whole atmosphere feel like this. Yeah, but what kind of person am I? Am I the kind of person that when I'm stressed, I just pass it out to everyone else and the whole room goes down? Or am I the kind of person that speaks something that lifts it up? Truthful lips endure forever. Lying lips will last only a moment. So in the moment, I might want to exaggerate. I might want to shift a little. I might want to, and that might be good for the moment, but it creates a bad habit and a bad pattern. Now, here's one. The one who derides their neighbor, or the one who does something that's mean and then says, oh, it's only a joke. These are in Proverbs. This is the Schmidt heritage. Going back to my grandpa and my great uncles, I watched it play out. I wasn't aware of it. It was part of the air I breathed. We just made fun of people all the time. We just put people down all the time. That's just how we operate. And then I get married, and Camille points out, like, boy, it's quite something. That's just not even helpful or good. And, it's like a few years into our marriage, I get back home, and I'm like, yeah, it just doesn't feel very good. And honestly, all of us as Schmidts, it is like a different atmosphere when we get together than it was 20 years ago. We have all committed to change. Like, we're not going to just put each other down all the time. We were just joking. It was just good fun. And it was just a constant, like, I couldn't see what it really did to people. So, that one, gossip. Hello, does Proverbs talk about gossip? Proverbs talks about gossip all the time. And gossip, by the way, this is not a definition of gossip. Gossip is not saying something that's not true and spreading around things that aren't true. That's not gossip. That is slander. That is false witness in Proverbs. Gossip is saying something you do honestly believe to be true, probably is true, and it puts someone else down. It puts someone else down, and you talk without them there, and you say things that are true, but put them down. And Proverbs says, don't gossip, don't gossip, don't gossip, don't gossip. It says gossip tastes really good. It's like a tasty morsel. So I was telling someone something about someone else this week, and it was starting to come out of my mouth, and I realized it's a tasty morsel. And I kept going. At least I noticed. I mean, seriously, it's a progression. Because there's so much gossip. We're so used to putting other people down to make ourselves look good that we don't treat it as a sin in the church. Church is pretty good at it usually. And so, but it's not good for relationships. So one of us says, of gossip, it's something about how gossip destroys, so avoid a person who talks a lot. Because it's almost impossible not to talk a lot and to end up gossiping. And end up not gossiping. Okay. Couple more things, and then we'll end. Can you give me the next subject line, Adam? I think it's don't be argumentative. Yes. I have a whole page and a bunch of slides back there that we're not going to go through that basically says, don't be a hot-tempered person. Don't be a person who starts fights. Don't be a person who is quarrelsome. There's one that says it's a person who jumps into someone else's argument that's not even their own is like a person who hangs on to a stray dog's ears and grabs a stray dog's ears. You know how that's going to go, like that. But that's what it's like to feel like you have to get in. Last year, there was a situation where at a wrestling tournament, so there's a wrestling tournament at one school, and we happen to have an administrator at that school who was involved in all this. This makes me, so I wish I could see the video. Anyway, there's a fight that breaks out, there's an argument that breaks out, and then parents come in and get into the argument, and now the argument's getting out, and now another person comes in that gets involved in this, and this other person who gets in is not part of either of the school, right? But they are in there. They happen to be wearing a Knoxville shirt, but they're from Albia. That makes me mad. That made me want to get in there and fight the person, to be honest. But that kind of person that feels like they've got, are you that kind of person? Are you the kind of person who can let it go? Or are you the kind of person who gets worked up? If we can get the next passage, Adam. Next one. There was one on a gentle answer. It's either right before this or right after this. So a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So you can feel the tension. Someone has said something. You could tell there's conflict in the room, or just you and another person, and they just pointedly say something, and they're upset. What is my response? The spirit that comes at me is the spirit I want to bring back. You come at me hard, I'm coming at you hard. And how much good does that do? Compared to, you come at me hard, and I say, maybe I didn't really mean to do it that way, but maybe I did cause that. And all of a sudden, and vice versa, everything is fine. And then someone says a harsh word, and now it's like the whole atmosphere of the room changes. In our relationships. So, again, that makes sense. Shouldn't bring a harsh word until you're in the moment, until you have the feelings coming, and then you're right into the harsh word. Then you're the one who's in the conflict. I'm going to quickly go through these next passages because there's just so much on diffusing conflict. So, Adam, if you can give me the ones after diffuse conflict. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. Next, a kind-hearted woman gains honor, but ruthless men gain only wealth. Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all wrongs. Whoever would foster love covers an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. When someone does something that hurts me, when someone does something that makes me look bad, when someone does something that I didn't like, even if they apologize, am I able to stop, just let it go? Or do I have to tell this person about it? And then do I have to tell that person about it? And then do I have to tell that person about it? And then do I have to tell that person about it? You can see what happens compared to someone who covers over it, who doesn't bring it up again. A couple more. Fools show their annoyance at once, but the prudent overlook an insult. I have gained experience at looking at when people are not happy with me. Like, you can't hide it. And I have started to become aware, people know I'm upset right now. Next. A person's wisdom yields patience. It is one's glory to overlook an offense. It is so hard to overlook it when someone does something that we don't like. It is so hard to overlook it when we have been hurt, but it is our glory. And how would you like a friend who, when you screw up, they are willing to, it's okay, and not bring it up again? How would you like to live with a person like that? How would you like a person in your family? Wouldn't that be a great person to live with? Unfailing love. Lots of people claim unfailing love, but a faithful person, one who overlooks offenses, who can find that? That is glorious. That is unusual. That is incredible. Do we want to become those kind of people? Now, quickly, we'll just keep going, add to the next heading. Speak truth directly. This doesn't mean never say anything. It is good to be honest. And in fact, Proverbs talks about how open wounds from a friend are better than kisses from an enemy. Someone who always tells you good things but doesn't really tell you what they think, that's not helpful. It's the manner in which we do it. But we're going to skip all that. Go to the last heading that I have. Be open to correction. And we'll talk more about this next week. If I'm going to become the kind of person who is a faithful person, who is a person that is good, does well in relationships, I have to just recognize, I messed that up. Yeah, I need your help. I need your perspective. So I'll have the worship team come up. So we'll go back to where we started from. Proverbs 20, verse 6. Many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find. Do you have someone like that in your life? Do you have people like that in your life? Faithful people. Are you that kind of person? Do you want to become that kind of person? There's a person I know who's like that. There is one who is always faithful. There is one who overlooks our offenses, who's slow to anger and abounding in love, who speaks blessing over us. There is one who said, I don't call you servants, I call you friends. There is one who leads us to the Heavenly Father. There is one who is like that. And I'm convinced that we need to know that one and his love to be the faithful person, to be the kind of person who extends that love into relationships. Let's pray.